Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BC Girls Podcast. We are your hosts, Matoba,
Hanfil, and
Akane.
Hi, everyone. So today we'll be celebrating International Podcast Day. And today we have a guest, a friend of mine who I went to college with, and eventually we became housemates. And now we're still best friends. She has a podcast of her own that she just started called Between the Gray Lines. Please help us welcome Marilyn Nguyen.
thanks for
Welcome.
We are so happy to have you here with us. And as you know, recording for a podcast isn't easy.
No, it's not.
So many things, so much time and investment go into, creating a podcast. But if you could, can you give us a little rundown about what your podcast is about?
Yes, I can. But just a heads up, there's only one episode out right now. So, like Matoba said, my podcast is called Between the Gray Lines. And it's the purpose of the podcast is basically to provide a space for people of all types of backgrounds to share their story as it relates to what they feel is most important to defining themselves and their identity. So that could be focusing on topics related to their, one person's upbringing, if they feel like that's been a huge factor and determinant of who they are now. It could be related to family. It could be related to, first time leaving family. I know something that we've talked about, a couple of our friends have talked about is how it was going out of state for the first time to college. Relates, as things relate to what you feel is important to yourself and who you are. And I kind of I let the space be open so that it can be something that's defined by the person that I'm speaking with or interviewing.
Yeah, that's really cool. I feel like your podcast is deeper than ours.
That is so false, but okay.
No, I agree with Matoba. Your podcast, how you just described it, is spicy.
Look, I'm gonna try to make sure that the episodes are also actually spicy, but it's hard, and we'll get into it. I know, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to come up with content, right? Since it's pretty broad.
Yeah, it's so broad, and I think something that I found useful in the conversations that I'm having right now with some of my friends who I'm preparing for interviews with and episodes coming up, because I know there's been a bit of a pause. So I've been trying to, again, have conversations prior to and kind of go through in conversation, lightly what they feel is important to them, and kind of get a feel on what topics to focus on, because we can talk about anybody's life, that'd probably take hours and hours to do. And you can honestly say everything's contributed to your life, right? But there are probably certain things that have made a larger impact than others, or things that might be more controversial, but you still feel it's a huge part of your identity. And that's what I like to explore too, the differences and what I may, differ from another person with might be the thing that really makes them stand out. It's a whole process, and you guys are also doing great. Don't shoot yourselves down. You have a lot of good topics that you can really get into, and you have been, so
Thank you. Yeah, and I feel like yours is about celebrating differences, which is awesome. And what made you want to start that? Why particularly that topic?
So I know I shared with you when I was starting up too, because I was struggling, and I was like, what's the best way to really connect with people, while also giving them a chance to share part of themselves in a space that's comfortable. And I feel like nowadays, and you see it, right? We're all of this generation where we're trying to push for more progress, but there's so much like anger and there's so much hate, and like everything's just divided more so now than than what we've seen within the past few years. And maybe it's because people are actually questioning things now, right? Like maybe these differences already existed and we kind of just let it go, and now it's being seen more because of the politics or whatnot. But like it's just this constant division, this like hatred or anger towards other people that you might not even know, right? They might have gone, everyone goes through their own crap. And like, if you truly value people as they are, I think you have to be willing to see and understand why someone might believe something that's different than you. And most people, I feel, don't actually want, like, they want the best for the world. Even if it's something we completely disagree with, like, they might think it's the best thing to do. And something that's come up recently, and this is a little controversial, so like pro-life, pro-choice, like some people think no, you're hurting someone, like you're killing a life and not giving them an opportunity to live. And like when it comes to abortion, and they might have like, I completely disagree with that, right? I'm more of like, there's a choice, there's so many different situations that where an abortion might be needed, and it'll still be painful for that person. But someone might be pro-choice because they've seen the process, and it hurts them, and maybe like they were someone that was going to be aborted, and they really don't want that to ever happen to another child, and there's that opportunity behind it. So it's like, even in those disagreements, I think like that's why I wanted to do it, because I want people to be more understanding. It's not black or white, and that's partially also why it's called Between the Gray Lines, because it's not just right or wrong, black or white.
Damn, that last part was so spicy.
I love your usage of this term spicy. I'm gonna start saying it.
Thank you. Yeah, keep using spicy. But I like how you kind of went like, there is no like white or black. It's like, it's something in between. So you named it, Between the Gray Lines. So now like, I got more, like you describing your podcast, I got more, like, I got a story behind why you named the podcast. So spicy.
Every time you say spicy, I think of CL, her new song Spicy.
With the sauce.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really deep. And I think BC Girls, we try to focus on like helping people create better versions of themselves. I mean, that's the short and simple way of saying it. But, essentially trying to bring a higher level of thinking, a higher level of being through some of the content we talk about. Because at least from what I understand, peace and happiness and all these good morals and qualities, they all start with me. Like, if I want to live in a peaceful world, I have to be a peaceful person. And so that whole, I like your podcast, or the idea of your podcast, because it's about really talking through and addressing the things that make us different, and maybe the things that separate us, the controversial stuff. And we're like, we talk about, or we try to talk about things that could unite us, and both sides are very important. We do have to talk through the things that separate us, because we've been living in a world for so long where people have always been separated, whether it be for like geological reasons, political reasons, money, economic reasons. Like, people have always been divided, and it's always so hard to imagine what a world of peace would look like, because we've only lived divided. We've only lived with hate and distrust for each other. So I think both are very necessary podcasts, or ideas of podcasts to have. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you for doing what you're doing.
I mean, I appreciate y'all too. I'm like you said, like I think that's the cool thing about podcasts, right? Like literally anyone can start one. And
Mhm.
like if you have that type of purpose, if you have that mission, if you have people that really need to hear that message, like even if it's just one person that listens to your podcast first, like you're making some sort of potential impact, and that's one more person that's like, you know, having their perspective broadened or like working on themselves, like you're saying. How do you turn and understand yourself and other people better? And I think podcasts are a cool space to do that in. And if you don't like showing your face, me, um, then you could also do that too, right? There's a place, and like you can make it so that if other people are not the most comfortable showing their face, that they can still share their story, and like they can still be heard in a way that makes them feel comfortable to be vulnerable.
Right, yeah.
What matters is the voice, not what the person looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Can accommodate for anybody, and I like that. But I like that you give that free space. It's not like one person fits into one category or not. You give that open space for people to talk, whether, yeah, like you said, like you disagree with them or you have the same kind of mindset as them. I think that's good, and I like how you're really trying to hear and understand them, because like maybe we don't understand them, but we don't give them that chance to speak and to even listen to them. So I like how you do that, because we don't always do that a lot in our lives or just with the people around us. So I really respect that. That's good.
Thank you.
And speaking about not showing face, I remember when we first started our podcast, that was something that we talked about heavy because I'm comfortable with showing my face. Like I know I have a responsibility to my words, to what I say, and so I'm very careful all the time, very cautious about what I say and how I portray myself. And so I was fine with showing my face. We were just going to do YouTube, but then this pandemic hit us and we had to rethink about, meeting in person and recording in person. And so podcast was the best way to do that. But yeah, we struggled with that in the beginning, whether or not we wanted to show our faces. And even coming up with how we were going to design our podcast, like the logo and our banners and all the stuff that we put out on social media. We've had very long conversations about that, and still to this day, we're coming up with ideas of how to make our podcast at least look better. And of course, the content too. But yeah, and that makes me question, like, what was your process? Like, how did you come up with all of that? The images and how you market or how you promote your podcast or don't promote your podcast? Like how is that for you right now?
So since I'm still in like such early phases, I feel like when it comes to starting things like this, that you have to just do it. Like you have to just start, you have to just get conversations going, and you have to get people interested and involved, because the goal is like for me to be able to give a space to share stories, but it's also like for people to listen. And so I would say, like, in terms of the starting off with the process, even creating the logo, that will definitely change at some point, I'm sure of it. But I wanted it to sort of represent, that I have like a globe in the back, because I want it to like represent again that shared space, that one world, that kind of unity that I want to get from this podcast. And then like having the lines kind of represent, what the name of the podcast is, and then having the microphone so that people realize like it's a space for you. It's a space for you to share. It's a space for you to come and understand and listen. And as I move forward with it, I'm really hoping that I could like push it more and share it to my friends and the social media so that people can give more feedback and people can listen in, and even share like topics that they're interested in as we move forward. Like, oh, is there someone that's older that you can get a perspective of? Because I know, a lot of my friends are younger, but I want to interview people that are older as well, because I feel like there's this huge gap between the youth and the older generations. Yeah, there's a lot that can happen moving forward, and it's kind of like an open road right now. I don't know how y'all are feeling and doing with that. You're a little more ahead of it than I am.
So I majored in graphic design, so I kind of chose one of my finals for like in seniors for portfolio to do VC Girls, kind of get a head start. So I kind of got help from my professors and get feedback from that. But I guess the most difficult part was like especially the logo, and like there's so much into designing, or at least designing brands, because there's so many steps. Like there's colors, like there's primary colors, which is like the main color of what the brand is going to like represent. Like McDonald's it's literally red and yellow and some white maybe, and then there's like secondary, which is like not like the color's not really used. I don't know what McDonald's says, but yeah, it's really difficult because you have to create a story behind the branding. So the reason why our logo looks like, or not really looks like, but it's the two sides is like a small blue circle and a small green circle, and then in the middle it's a purple circle, and they all represent like people. And the reason why I put faces is because we're mostly talking about people's lives and how we're supposed to change ourselves and others, but also like considering color, because if you choose the wrong color, then that kind of represents the wrong story behind that specific brand. So there's a lot of stuff going on, branding and design, and obviously it's really hard even now because I keep changing stuff. Every design, like sometimes it's like I like it, but then I don't like it. I bet you that's all designers out there. Like I like it, but I don't like it. I'm not satisfied. That's how it is.
Is that not the truth? Oh my god. The logo is like, it's so hard because it's what's front facing for your podcast. Like if people don't see your face, that's the first thing that they're gonna see. Right. And people say don't judge a book by its cover, but you know dang well that they're gonna look at the cover and be like, I don't know, this looks like a basic cover. Like like I know that like sometimes when I prefer simple logos, right? And that's what catches the eye nowadays. And
yeah,
you're so right. Like the colors say so much, and like when you have the story that lines up with it, like you were saying about the marketing and bringing people to the podcast, it all plays a pretty. It can play a pretty big role, especially as you get bigger and grow your audience. Like that's what they're gonna know you as, and they're gonna be able to point out, the podcast logo, hopefully. I mean, I definitely know that I can see y'all's like logo and be like, oh, that's DC Girls.
And I remember, Akane, she would, come up and ask us, what we think about the logo, and she gave us different ideas. And she kept asking us because, we weren't drawing the logos ourselves. Like Phil and I, we weren't drawing anything, but we trusted her enough. We trusted her completely to come up with an amazing logo. But yeah, I remember that. And me, I'm a creative person, so I too would be like, hey, what if you did this, or what if you did that, or what if you like took our pictures and like cartoonized it or something, like. And so I can imagine that was only more stress, but I think that's the advantage that we have. It's three of us. And then there's like one of you, Marilyn. So you gotta find your other people to help you.
That I think, like, even going through my logos, I kept like, I think I sent pictures to our group chat, right? And I was like, can you guys help me like pick one? Like, what do you feel like fits best? And some of them were actually, like, upon looking back at them, are hideous. So it's like it's a process, and I don't think a lot of people really realize like how much work goes into a logo, especially if it looks basic, like, and simple. Because sometimes that simplicity says a lot. And you just explained, your whole logo to me, and I'm here like, wow, there's something behind all of the components that you were thinking about. And yeah, it's probably good that you have Akane on the team who does know about the graphic design. I
would not be able to do this, honestly. I would not have this podcast if it wasn't for Akane. Or we wouldn't have this podcast. Like, to be honest. Yeah, and then, we have our content as well. I like how earlier you were saying, just do it. Because at some point, like, that was our driving force, our motivation, the end of 2019, or close to the end of 2019. We were like, you know what? We just got to do this. Like, we keep talking about planning and wanting to do something with BC Girls. And then at some point, we were just like, you know what? We just need to do it. No more planning, no more wishing and hoping. Like, let's just do it. And so, then we launched our podcast January 1st. Wait, was it 2020 or 2019? Wait, what? Was it this? It was this year, right?
This year,
my God.
Uploaded the videos. But we were planning way behind.
Yeah, see, that's right. See? Look at me getting all confused. This is how long we've been planning. We've been planning to do something with BC Girls, and so just do it. If you have a podcast or if you have an idea, like, honestly, just do it. The only way you're gonna know if it's gonna work or not is if you do it. If you don't do it, you'll never know. And I also say that to myself because I want to do something else too on our YouTube page, and I keep stalling. I keep putting it off because now we've developed, like, we've grown enough to the point where we have, each of us, all three of us, have our own sort of playlist on YouTube where we discuss something about ourselves that we like, something of our interests, or whatever it is that we want to talk about. It's just us individually. So I keep stalling and pushing back my idea. So I know I have to do that, and I am admitting this on this podcast, so that hopefully before the end of this year, I do something. So that's how we manage our podcast. And Handful too is a huge help as well. Whenever either Akane or I are just like too busy or we're too overwhelmed, she comes in and offers extra help, extra support. And also she contributes a lot to our the talking part of the podcast. I said port. Portion of the podcast. Whenever we have our topics and we go over the questions that we're going to answer or what we're talking about, she helps significantly in that area. So it's great to, running a podcast by yourself is hard. So I encourage you, Marilyn, to find your peoples. Oh, do you have a website for your podcast?
Oh, so I am working on a website, but it's like, the website will tie in multiple things that I do. So it'll include the podcast, but it's also going to include a couple other things that I work on, and maybe related to like my freelance work on the side. So right now I haven't launched the website yet, but I'm hoping to have like a tab in my webpage that connects to everything podcast related. I'm hoping at some point also, since I already like do a lot of transcription, that I can have all of my podcasts transcribed for people who might not be able to, to listen to it, but really want to know, what's going on in the episodes and about the guests and things like that prior to. So yeah, I'm hoping to push that website. Like Matoma said, with her stuff, I've been stalling on the website. But it's something that I'm working on.
Yeah, also for our listeners, us too, we're trying to make a website. Sorry it's taking so long. Yeah, so okay, where do I start? When I heard, or when Marilyn and I, when we were talking about, our podcast and what we want to do, and she actually called me once and we were talking about, her creating her website, and I was like, oh shoot, that's cool. Like, what are you using? We're not gonna call their name because we're not sponsored by them, and so they don't deserve free marketing. But we'll probably reach out to them. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, because of Marilyn now, we have more of the idea to like really create a solid website. That is still in the works, and I'm still learning a lot about website creation in itself. Like, I'm not the tedious, like, behind the computer type person. I'm not that tech person. I'm more of just the creative. So like, I come up with the ideas and then I would like for someone else to like bring it into fruition, which is why I love Akane so much. But yeah, so it's very hard for me. I'm moving at my own pace. And even with social media, that too, I'm like, man, I can't wait till we get to the point where we can just hire people to do this for us. Like, that would be so amazing. But this is the work that is put into, creating a podcast and getting it out there and making sure, people know about it, because we believe we have something great to offer. So yeah, us too, we're struggling, girl. We're struggling.
It's okay though, because at some point we gotta keep grinding, and at some point we're gonna hit that break, and then after that it'll just all be downhill from there. Like, but we gotta make it up the mountain first.
Right? Yeah.
What do you like? I guess my questions are more like future. What's a big like goal at the end of it? Where do you want to see like the podcast, and I guess even near future, what are you guys trying to do with the podcast in terms of growing it and reaching out to people?
Yeah, for me at least, I view BC Girls being a brand. I see BC Girls as a brand more than I see it as a podcast. Like, podcasting is one of the things that we do. But hopefully, I don't know, this is just me. But giving or having speaking engagements, maybe not speaking tours, because I don't really know who wants to listen to me, but having speaking engagements, being invited onto panels or having panel discussions, and inviting guests, having our own space, our own building to work out from. Like, I have big dreams. Because I see BC Girls as a brand. And so, I want to venture into many different aspects of branding, if that makes sense. Like lifestyle, music, podcasting, and whatever else we're interested in, Like, I want it to be something huge. So yeah, but that's like the far future. That's the end goal. I think in the near future, like our future plans for this podcast as it is right now, yeah, just building that website, getting that solid space, because then we have something of our own platform, that our audience can go to and can keep up to date with what's happening. Hopefully we'll have blogs on that website and, other things that, websites usually have. And merch, we've talked about that a lot.
I actually designed merch just for the portfolio because I had to showcase like some other, like it wasn't enough with like statistics, because I kind of did it with like, it was like a humanitarian project, so I kind of used BC Girls as that because it was pretty much similar. And like other students were having merches and videos, so I kind of also put in a video and kind of like a visual of what it would look like if we had merch. So I put like a sticker, sweater, I think a hat too, but yeah, it's pretty nice to like see things come to life, even visually. But we just have to, step forward to the next step to make it actual. Right.
And we have to figure out which place or which platform is the best platform to have our merch be sold out from. Because I know, this is kind of off topic, but I Patreon. There's a person that I follow on Patreon, or a storyteller that I follow on Patreon. And she too is trying to come up with better merch. And actually the one that she's using right now, the company that she's using right now, they're kind of pricey. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm sorry guys. Like, I don't want y'all to be spending like so much money on merch. So like, we have to plan that more and organize that better and do more research on our part. But yeah, I think we would have really cute teacups, because I'm a tea person. So I like our logo on on a white teacup, or a notebook. It would be so helpful if we just had our own like BC Girls notebook, because you guys, I write all of our BC Girls ideas in like 5 different notebooks. Like there's not one singular notebook that's just for BC Girls, and it really upsets me. But that'd be cool. That'd be cool if we had that. And of course, other things, t-shirts, whatever else sells, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's right now for the near future. And we're also thinking about how we're gonna end our podcast for the year. Our first full year. We're also planning for that too. So look forward to that.
But no, that's honestly like so cool. Hearing you talk about it as like a brand, and like Akane, Hansa, like I'm interested in hearing your personal like thoughts too. But I'm sure you guys have talked about it together a lot as a group. But it's like, I feel like you have to think big, right? Like, what's the end goal? Because it helps motivate you, and like that ultimate goal of reaching out to as many people as you can, but also being a space that's not just for podcasts, but a space where people can access a ton of other resources, and for you to share your own like personalities too, right? It's a space where you guys, each of you individually, can share like what you do on a day-to-day basis. Like, I love the couple videos that you guys have up now. Matoba, add something. I'm watching the YouTube channel.
Ooh,
I'm waiting for your post. But like, that's already a space where you guys are showing more of your personalities too, like one-on-one. I think that's really cool. So I don't know. I just love all of this, and how you guys are continuing to keep up the momentum. Maybe that means I also have like blog component. I'm gonna steal your idea.
How dare
Blog
you?
component to
I'm
the
joking.
website.
I'm just joking.
Oh my god, no, I would have to hire people for that. That's too much. I can't.
I know. I was just that too. When I said that, I was like, but then I gotta hire people.
Well, at some point, you can start hiring people. Your time is valuable.
Yeah, and that's another thing when we're talking about merch and all that. Like the reason why we talk about that is because like we want our podcast to like make income for itself so that we can do more things with the podcast. And then eventually grow into, you know, the brand idea that I was talking about for BC Girls. So we don't ask for donations or anything right now. Like everything pretty much is coming out of pocket. Yeah, it'd be cool if we could grow and develop to the point where people just naturally want to give and naturally want to support us, and financially at least. And in other ways too, that'd be great. But yeah, all of that, you know, is really important, you know, making income for the podcast so that it can do more and be bigger than what it is right now. Yeah. At least I'm focused on that. I think about that all the time. Like, so how?
For me, it's kind of similar to what I kind of showcase on my website as a graphic designer. We don't have a website yet, as we spoke like the past few minutes. But I kind of want to, like, my main goal is to kind of create this environment, this community of where like people can like speak whatever that needs to come out from them. I kind of took that inspiration from my last class, which was like a internship, but in a classroom. And like the professors there, they really helped us like get our ideas and like our thoughts to them. Like we had to speak out. I wasn't very comfortable with that, but once I did it, I felt really comfortable. So I wanted to create a really like strong community with it, like in the future, like it could be through Discord, but I would like for like, you know, to have it like a panel where everyone can like sit down and we could all talk to each other about like problems, all the whatever is in everyone's head. But also kind of I want to also discuss about mental health, because during it kind of like started to like, I noticed it when I was in college of second year, when I was majoring in something else besides graphic design, and I kind of noticed like there's something wrong with me, and like I need to figure what the hell like this feeling is. And then I didn't get diagnosed yet, but I should. But I knew like it had to do something with mental health. So I also want to make a big thing for mental health, kind of giving it like what it would, kind of like giving out like a real vlog, kind of like what it, like this is how I live my life with depression or anxiety, kind of like keeping everything real pretty much. So I kind of want to create that community in the future through BC Girls. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have the same idea as Matova though. Like thinking about it as a brand, but also as an organization too. And kind of like inspiring others to, you know, like we're not all perfect. Us
Right.
three, we're never perfect. We can't be close to perfect. So we want to, you know, along with like, we want to also develop ourselves to create a better version of ourselves too, and also encourage other people to do it as well, to, you know, at least get closer to the perfect people that we imagine to be.
We're all growing human beings.
Indeed.
That That is awesome. I mean, that's huge. That is huge. And right now, like, mental health is becoming, I don't want to use this term, but it's what comes to mind is like it's becoming more trendy. And I think people need to have open and candid conversations about what it looks like and like what it is. And it shouldn't be just a trendy thing. It should be something that's like a continuous conversation. I love that.
Thank you. How about you, Ansel?
Yeah, I feel like more or less the image I had when we started talking about BC Girls is like kind of on my perspective of like how kind of being exposed to social media, and then also like finding people that I looked up to or got influenced by on YouTube, and I was just like thinking of like, oh, that's a nice thing to do, or that's like, but kind of I never really put myself in that perspective, in their shoes, like how would it be to be on the other side kind of thing. I didn't really see like so much of my confidence in that, but I feel like you guys kind of helped push me in that direction to give me more confidence in that. But like I feel like being able to kind of just share a little bit of my experience in my life, if that, whether or not that can relate to someone else or give them another avenue or advice to do something differently than what I did, which can help them for whatever they decide to do in their career, their passions, their future, anything that they're really interested in. I feel like I wanted to open that door for other people, and kind of like I really want to be able to like kind of, in Toby, you said like have a panel. I would love to hear like personal feedback or like face-to-face feedback of the other people, like how like how has BC Girls been for them, or like what are they able to gain, or like, you know, where we can improve and stuff, and just like talking to it and like kind of promoting it more, because I feel like I'm more of a reserved person that doesn't really put herself out there that much. So this is even a new space for me to like grow or even just challenge myself, just putting myself out there. So I feel like it's a journey for myself as well. But I feel like I don't have like big picture goals like you guys, but I feel like yeah, I guess to the point where it's just like, I wouldn't say to the point, but like what, I don't know. I we can see the progression of all of us, just not how it goes and where it leads us. I think that's great, because yeah, I feel like I was scatterbrained, but but I feel like there's a lot of potential with this, and I'm really excited for how it's gonna go. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep nudging myself a little bit, you know, keep going. So yeah, I feel like just having an open panel for other people to talk, and you know, honestly, for them to comment or say how it was, or like just little things like just saying they really enjoy it or just so glad we started, it's like, you know, that gives me so much life already. So that's I feel like that's good for me.
I'm clapping too, you can't see it. I also love that. I mean, it doesn't, like, even as you're saying, you know, the goals aren't the same as like Akane's or Matobas. Like, it's still, I feel like, pretty substantial what you're saying, because even the little things matter, right? You're starting off with the little things too, like each individual person that you can reach out to, and even being a space for you to feel more comfortable in sharing your voice. Like, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's huge for anybody, and there are probably other people just like you listening to it, and like when they hear you say that, they're probably gonna be like, yeah, I vibe with her, I think the same exact way. And you probably need someone of each of your personalities. So this is a good crew. Y'all are getting me excited. I feel like I should do a podcast after this. God.
Thank you. What about you? What are your future plans for the podcast?
Oh God. It's really, I guess I need to think further into it, because right now my main goal is really just to like get as many different types of people that I can on it. Like as diverse as I can. Like, who am I excluding, or who have I not thought about? Like, what backgrounds would be good to include? Like, I know right now hot topics is discuss like refugees. Like, is there someone that can speak to the immigrant or refugee experience? I know my parents, but they don't speak English that well. But like, just my main thing right now is to build that diversity in my audience and my interviewees. But longer term, I'm really hoping that it can get as big as like some of these other podcasts that I listen to. I know you might shout out in a couple minutes. But I want it to be something that's easily accessible anywhere, and I hope that actually that I can move to doing like YouTube videos at some point for people who are comfortable with showing their face in podcasts, because I realize that a lot of these successful like podcasters that I listen to or watch, like they also have a video component, because it's easier for people to react sometimes when they can see your facial expressions, and they can tie your personality to the face, and like it's easier because you can actually relate to it. You might make the same facial expressions and like, oh my god, like I was gonna see if he's gonna laugh at that, like I thought it was funny. So it's cool, and I'm hoping I could like do a little setup where it's like I have a home setup and then a mobile setup where I can go out on site to certain places. Again, this is way far down the line because you have to get permissions to like go to some of these like places and interact with some of these groups of people that I might want to interact with. But have like a mobile setup where I can go talk to people in spaces that may be harder to reach and share their story and have them realize that there's actually someone willing to listen. In terms of merch and all of that, I don't know. I love stickers, so maybe.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that too. We would make some cute stickers. Anyways, sorry.
So yeah, I haven't thought about merch that much. My main focus has just been how can I reach people, who can I reach, and what can I use to reach those people. I'm just hoping that it can get big enough to where it actually is creating the impact that I want, that people are actually growing their perspective and mindset.
Yeah, and also like I'm a big picture kind of person. Like I love to dream big, but I do not like to do the little tedious work behind that big dream. Or not that I don't like to, but it's harder for me to see things on a smaller scale. Which is why I appreciate Hanfield and Akane. I feel like we're balanced because of that. A lot of where my big picture ideas come from are from other podcasts that have been successful and done bigger things than what we're doing right now. And one of them is called the Love Life Legacy Podcast. Love Life Legacy Podcast. Their description of it says, sex is something just about everyone is interested in, yet it's so hard to find relatable, sensible information about how to create a healthy, fulfilling sexual relationship that lasts decades. These two guys, Andrew and Sammy, they're on a deep dive into topics like porn, masturbation, romancing your spouse, and anything to do with real practical insights on healthy sexuality. And for me, in my life, where I'm at right now, that is so important to me. Imagining a healthy sexual relationship that I could possibly have in the future with my future spouse, whoever that may be, because we don't know yet. And just I'm like of the faith or of the cloth of like saving yourself for marriage. And so that's why it's so important to me to understand or get an idea of what a healthy marriage, what a healthy relationship with another person looks like. So I love their podcast. They really talk about a lot of things. They talk on their most recent show, they talked about accountability, how to deal with crushes, wet dreams, what is intimacy. Like that stuff is so intriguing to me, and so I love listening to them because they really do give me insight and they elevate my way of thinking when it comes to that part of relationships. And another podcast I listen to is Clever Girl Finance. I love Clever Girl Finance because she helps me get my money together in a short and simple way. She helps me understand, things and habits that I need to break in order to get better with saving my money instead of just spending it recklessly. So she's helping me in that department. And I guess another podcast that I'll shout out is Girl Boss Radio. I love listening to them because they talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. They're really about female empowerment. And they talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about their businesses, how they got started, or celebrities who are making an impact, who are, being their own boss, starting their own businesses or starting their own organizations, and just, having a conversation, how they got started and what they're doing to maintain it and what sparked their interest in the first place. So I love listening to Girl Boss Radio, so I can know what other people are doing, that I don't get to see on social media or on television. It's nice to just hear what everyone else is up to. So yeah, those are just some of the podcasts I listen to. I listen to a lot, but those are just 3 that I'll name.
The shout out I want to give to is called Meet Cute. I actually helped out with the graphics and social media posts. Meet Cute is actually a Hollywood term for when 2 people eventually form a romantic relationship for the first time. So it's like literally
love at first sight?
Yeah, love at first sight. This podcast actually does is she gathers actual couples, have them tell their story of how they met. How they met, and it's so funny and so loving because it's a rom-com, and like hearing their stories actually, it makes me feel really happy. It's like, oh, there's so many different types of stories because there's so many couples actually that share their stories on here. So I really recommend if you're really if you're really into rom-coms, and also if you're kind of like want some inspiration on if you want to meet your special someone.
For me, there are like 2. There's one I came across. They're called Luna Stream, and it's kind of a platform that they created for like young members in the unifications movement faith that I come from. So like a lot of questions, a lot of controversial topics, sensitive topics that a lot of like the young members in our church and like also first generation members of our church did not get to discuss or feel open to talk about. This is kind of that space and that place where they're able to like freely discuss it, and it was like it's a safe space for them. So it was so interesting to hear different perspectives and different thoughts that I've had over the years or just had like through their different topics that they had here. So this was very insightful to hear about and kind of be able to, okay, so it wasn't only me who kind of thought about this way, or I didn't get to discuss certain things here. And another one that I listened to for a bit is called Learning with David. I used it as like it's Learn Korean with David. I like to learn the Korean language because I think it's a really awesome language to learn from, and I love the culture too. I love a whole lot of this is like the first one that attracted me so much. So there's like little episodes of learning how to say little phrases of little things, how to greet, like greetings, or for little conversations here and there. So I feel like if you want to definitely learn Korean and learn like bits and pieces, it's not like you're taking like grammatical classes or anything, or like, but he does have it looks like he has his own website for where you can get the materials if you like to do it that way rather than verbally listen to everything. So that's one other podcast that I listened to. And
yes, we all love Korea. Like I love Korea. Anyways, yeah. How about you, Marilyn? What podcast do you listen to?
Okay, so I'm more of a YouTube like video / podcast person than I am like with actual podcasts, because a lot of my actual podcasts are really like matter of fact type of podcasts or educational podcasts. Like I listen to The Economist and The World and like Planet Money.
Do you listen to do you listen to what's that, NPR?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. Anyways, okay.
I listen to NPR all the time because I feel like they're not as biased.
Yes.
So I listen to them or The World or BBC World News. But outside of the more news-related ones, like I listen to occasionally Stuff You Should Know. This is like a podcast. It's usually a conversation between two guys, Josh and Chuck, and they go over like a bunch of different random topics that you may not have known that you wanted to know about. But they go from like, I think the other day they were talking about how police and investigation works, and the police interrogation, how that works, how sarcasm works, and then they go to like something all the way to like how ketchup works and what is reverse osmosis, and it's just a bunch of things.
I love that.
I just love, because it's just random topics that they like want to know more about, or they like explain the history behind like Chinatown and who was America's first murderer. So some really interesting random things on here that just is cool to know about, from science to politics to whatever. And then I also have a podcast that I like to listen to from time to time. It's called Chill Chat. And like, Matoba, I went to China for a semester. I was able to learn a little bit of Mandarin. So to kind of keep it up, sometimes like I like to listen to this podcast because it gives you like short conversations or phrases that you can add to your language. And how you can use it in like a more relatable, relevant sense. And it's usually done with this I don't remember her name, but the host and her friend usually, they try to have a conversation back and forth, and her friend usually is like asking questions about like, oh, so this is what, this is how you would use this phrase in Chinese, and she'll help explain like the nuances and as it relates to the culture and things like that. And then something else, I feel like I'm just listing a bunch of stuff now. Sorry.
That's okay.
I would say something that every so often I listen to. It's like a newer podcast, based off of if you guys follow them on Instagram, the anti-racism page. There's an anti-racism daily podcast that's hosted by Nicole Cardoza, and she kind of goes through some of the relevant topics as it relates to solidarity, climate justice, explaining like history as it relates to racism in the U.S., voting. So just, I guess, addressing like the history and the lifestyle.
So if y'all want to check them out, definitely do so.
Thanks y'all so much for like having me, and I honestly love this conversation because it's like you kind of learn from each other, right? And
yeah.
You guys kind of inspired me to probably work more on it today and tomorrow. But no, this is really cool, and being able to hear other people's inspirations and passions, it gets me excited. So thank y'all.
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. No, seriously, we really appreciate having you here, and it's always fun whenever we have a guest. I think you're the second guest that we've had on this podcast, so you're very special. But yeah, thank you again for coming, and hopefully we can have another joint podcast like this, or we can come on your podcast.
I was literally about to say, how about y'all come on mine now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's plan for it and organize. That'd be fun. Again, thank
So
you.
excited.
That'd be, I would love to talk about, our differences and like what makes us us. That'd be so cool. But yeah, so thank you again for being on our podcast. Hope to see you again. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at BC Girls. You can also listen to this episode on Spotify, which will be linked down below.
Let's all create a better version of ourselves. Until next time.